From homeless to millionaire, a black man's journey that even Donald Trump and Elon Musk admire. Ethan Banks never imagined a day at the city park would turn his world upside down. The billionaire tech genius was known for his sharp mind and colder walls, but today, with his son tugging at his hand, something different stirred inside him. The park was buzzing, the sounds of kids laughing, dogs barking, and city life swirling around, but it was a small figure sitting on a worn bench that caught Ethan's eye. Samuel was hard to miss. His clothes hung loose, stained, and threadbare. His face weathered like old leather, eyes heavy with stories no one wanted to hear. Yet there he was, gently holding his little girl close, cradling her like a precious secret, against a world that had nothing but noise and neglect to offer. The way he pulled her ragged coat tighter around her shoulders made Ethan's chest tighten. Something raw and familiar flickered inside him. He wasn't just curious, Whoa! The irony hit him like a cold slap. Samuel had everything Ethan had lost, chasing fortune, love, vulnerability, the messy, unpolished truth of life itself. Samuel had a past that cut deep, a life painted with sharp losses and brutal fights. But underneath it, a heart thicker than steel. That nightmarish past wasn't just his alone anymore. It was now a shadow moving alongside Ethan, pulling at corners of his perfect world he never wanted to face. Their eyes met, brief but urgent. Samuel's gaze was tired but fierce, like a man daring the world to knock him down again. Ethan wanted to look away, but something inside him refused. What was it? Guilt? Longing? A glimmer of hope? Before he could unravel it, a murmur spread through the crowd like wildfire. Whispers. That's Banks's kid. What's he doing there? People nudged each other, eyes darted, smartphones lifted. Someone's rival, always lurking, had already smelled the scent of scandal. An enemy ready to spin this odd encounter into a headline that could shatter Ethan's carefully built empire. Samuel's past wasn't just pain, it was danger. Secrets that promised to explode, dragging both men into a storm they never signed up for. And yet, something unexpected blossomed between them. A fragile trust, a desperate promise. Ethan's fingers trembled. The weight of choice pressed down. Fail here, and everything could crumble. His name, his son's safety, his soul. Stand firm, and maybe, just maybe, they could rewrite the meaning of worth. Not money, not fame, but something deeper, darker, real. Thunder rumbled faintly as the sun dipped lower. Two paths stretched out, uncertain, tangled. What secrets hid in Samuel's past? What price would Ethan pay to stand by a man the world had already forgotten? The park's noise faded into silence. The future waited, sharp and unforgiving. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, What city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Samuel's gaze held Ethan like a spell. The world around them faded. Friends and strangers, laughter and joy, all overshadowed by an invisible weight. But as thunder rumbled softly in the distance, it wasn't the storm they had to worry about. And then it happened. A woman's scream tore through the park, piercing the air like a knife. Help! Someone get him away from her! Ethan's heart skipped, breath catching in his throat. People turned, faces twisted in panic. Samuel's eyes widened, fear flickering behind them. Without thinking, Ethan rushed forward, propelled by instinct. As he fought through the crowd, he caught a glimpse of the scene unfolding before him. A man, burly and wild-eyed, lunging towards Samuel's little girl, a sinister grin plastered on his face. "Stay away from her!" Samuel roared, standing up, fury igniting his strength. Every line of his face screamed power, but for all the depth he contained, desperation bubbled beneath. Ethan raced, adrenaline coursing through his veins, fueled by doing what he felt was right for a man he barely knew. The crowd thickened, a river of bodies pushing against him, whispers rising like a tide. People's expressions shifted, their phones now raised, cameras ready to capture the drama unfolding. "What's going on?" they asked, eyes wide, their collective murmurs electric with anticipation. Samuel was a shield, expelling the darkness that threatened his daughter. But the bigger man didn't care. He kept advancing, a predator stalking its prey. With one last push, Ethan broke through. He couldn't think about the weight of the world on him, nor the creeping worry about his son watching from afar. All that mattered was the girl, the innocent child in the storm of chaos forming around them. "Hey, you stay back!" Ethan barked, standing beside Samuel, adrenaline making his heart race wildly. The man sneered, eyes flaring with madness. But just then, something shifted. The sky darkened above them, clouds rolling in ominously. It wasn't just the threat of a storm. Something felt far more unsettling. A flash, a blinding light erupted from the crowd as the man lunged. And in that instant, time slowed. Samuel thrust himself forward, an instinctual movement to protect. But the moment shattered like glass as the sound of a gunshot echoed, cold and piercing. Ethan's heart dropped, the noise gripping him like a vice. Everything fell silent. People frozen, their expressions endearing shock mingled with fear. The atmosphere turned electric, charged with uncertainty. Ethan's mind whirled as he watched Samuel stumble, eyes widening as blood seeped through his fingers where he clutched his side. No! 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 Panic set in, and time rushed forward again as screams erupted, a cacophony of horror and disbelief weaving through the crowd. His hands, trembling but anxious, Ethan hurried to Samuel's side. "Stay with me, please." The world around him exploded into chaos. Then the unexpected happened. Samuel's gaze met Ethan's, and in that heartbeat, a frail understanding passed between them. Dark truths pulsed in the air. Secrets, intertwined lives, a betrayal lurking in the shadows. Samuel opened his mouth, gasping. "You don't know. It's all connected." The last word hung in the air, dense with implication. The ground shifted beneath Ethan, pulling him towards a realization he wasn't ready for. He had stepped into a world brighter than riches but darker than he imagined. And then there was silence, a crushing abyss where hope once sparkled in the fading light. The future, now uncertain and ominous, loomed ahead. What had just begun felt like an ending. Ethan's heart raced, confusion wrapping tightly around him. What had he walked into? What lay ahead? The crowd, Samuel's daughter, and the truth. Everything hung in a delicate balance, ready to tip. The park's noise faded into silence. The future waited, sharp and unforgiving. Then, without warning, chaos erupted. A piercing scream cut through the hum of laughter and chatter. A woman's voice, sharp and raw, a sound filled with pure terror. Eyes flitted towards the source, gasps rippling through the crowd like the wind before a storm. Ethan felt his heart stop. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he was rooted to the spot. Panic spread as a figure burst onto the scene, wild-eyed and frantic, pushing through the crowd with the desperation of a cornered animal. It was Samuel's wife, Ava, her hair disheveled and face pale, Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Her gaze was frantic, darting around as if searching for something or someone. "Samuel!" she screamed, her voice breaking. "Where are you? Please!" Time slowed. Samuel's face, once weary and fierce, turned to pure shock. Panic ignited in his eyes. He pushed back the memories of his past, of fights and scars. As he stood up, his little girl still in his arms. "Ava, what's wrong?" Ethan felt that identical pull of urgency now knotting his stomach. The crowd had shifted, their murmurs morphing into a chorus of confusion. Who was this woman? Why was she so frantic? What had gone wrong? Ava stumbled closer, her eyes fixing on Samuel. "You need to come home! They're here! They're looking for you!" Every person in the park froze. The air thickened with fear. Whispers turned into shouts. Fingers pointed. Who were they? The unspoken question hung heavy in the atmosphere. Who would intimidate Samuel enough to make him flee? Samuel's grip on his daughter tightened, his face a mask of horror that Ethan had never seen. "What do you mean?" His voice trembled. "Who's after me?" Just then the sharp sound of sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer by the second. A chill washed over the park as fear seeped into every heart. The police? Or worse? "Just run!" Ava urged, tears streaming down her face. "They found us!" The crowd erupted into panic, people pushing to escape the perceived danger. Ethan stepped forward, adrenaline pumping. "You don't have to go through this alone," he shouted to Samuel, but his words barely cut through the commotion. Samuel's fierce determination shattered as he gazed at Ava. They were on the brink of disaster. But then something shifted. Ava looked at Ethan, her expression sharp. "You," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "You can help us, can't you? You have the power. They'll listen to you." Ethan's heart raced, but a seed of doubt sprouted in his chest. What exactly was he being pulled into? Was he ready to step into a world of secrets and threats? He had enough to lose. Yet beneath that hesitation lurked something else, a flicker of hope. He could either turn away, maintain the comfort of his perfect life, or throw himself into the fray, risking everything. Then, Amidst the growing chaos, Samuel's little girl cried. A piercing sound of innocence lost in the turmoil. The intertwining webs of their lives tangled tighter, leaving Ethan standing at an impossible crossroad, with the weight of their fates heavy in the air. And just like that, as two worlds collided, the first glimpse of the truth threatened to unravel everything he thought he knew. The sirens grew louder, and the future twisted into something unrecognizable. As sirens wailed nearer, everything spiraled into chaos. Ethan stood frozen, a deep pit forming in his stomach. Samuel's frantic glance shifted to the thrumming crowd, fear carving lines in his face. Ava's voice cried out again, raw and desperate. "They'll find us! We need to move!" But just as Ethan gathered his thoughts, everything jolted to a halt. A figure stepped from the crowd, a man, tall and imposing, with eyes that glittered like ice. Dressed in dark clothes that hugged his frame, he seemed intangible against the frantic faces around him. "Samuel!" he bellowed, a commanding voice that cut through the noise. The crowd murmured uneasily, shifting, afraid. That name, Samuel, echoed like a verdict. Who is he? Ethan's mind raced. What did he want? Samuel's expression shifted from horror to resignation. "You shouldn't be here, Marcus," he said, voice trembling. "What did you bring me into?" Ethan whispered, half to himself, half to Samuel. The man, Marcus, advanced, tension radiating from him. "You think you can run, Samuel?" His tone dripped with disapproval. "You can't escape what you owe." Ava stepped forward, panic mixed with a fierce protective energy. "You stay back! We've done nothing wrong!" But Marcus just laughed, a chilling sound in the thickening air. "You think you know the whole story? The man hiding behind his millions? The dirt buried deep adds weight to your false crown, Ethan Banks." The chilling clarity hit him like ice water. "Me? What do you mean?" Samuel's eyes locked onto Ethan's, an explosion of urgency behind them. "Ethan, you don't understand. He's not just a threat. He's connected. To my past. To everything." There was a sharp intake of breath. Haunting memories flickered in Samuel's eyes. Then Marcus sneered. "Every deal you made, all the paths you took, Ethan, have brought you right back to this moment." Suddenly, a bolt of clarity struck Ethan like lightning. You were part of those deals. You were the one who... Marcus smiled, a sinister curve. "Exactly. Now all the pieces fall into place. Samuel isn't just a man with a troubled past. He's a pawn in a game you never knew you were playing." Ethan felt his world tilt. Every truth he thought he grasped was crashing down around him. "What do you mean, a pawn?" He could barely speak, his voice shaking. "Let's not pretend here. You think your wealth buys you safety, that it shields you from the shadows? This isn't just about Samuel anymore. It's bigger than all of us." His voice sliced through the crowd's rising panic. Then, in a swift motion, Marcus reached into his coat. Time slowed, hearts raced, and the air squeezed tight. "Your riches can't save you now. I've come to collect," he declared. In that moment, as silence enveloped the park, a scream rumbled from the crowd. The figure of a child, a little girl, small and innocent, was wrenched from the chaos, by a second man, equally rugged and wild-eyed. "Get away from her!" Samuel shouted, his voice a raw chord of desperation. Ethan's breath halted in his chest, his world collapsing faster than he could grasp. This was no longer an ordinary confrontation. This was a reckoning, a battle of lives, choices, and a dangerous web pulled tight around them all. "What have you dragged me into, Samuel?" he gasped. The truth twisted like a knife. Questions spun through his mind, desperate for clarity in a storm of horrors. What lay beneath Samuel's sorrow? What had Marcus really pushed Samuel to? Every heartbeat thrummed in sync with the chaos, echoing heart-stopping uncertainty. The sirens blared in the background, the crowd surged around them, and reality shattered. Everything Ethan thought he knew about wealth, about relationships, about truth, hung on one fragile moment as choices loomed ahead. And in that tangled web, dark and deceitful, an unseen predator lay in wait. What had just begun was only a spark igniting a wildfire, and Ethan found himself in deeper waters than he'd ever imagined. The park's noise faded into silence. The future waited, sharp and unforgiving. Suddenly, a crack echoed through the air. A blinding light burst from the sky, casting strange shadows that twisted and turned around them. The crowd gasped, phones forgotten, eyes wide. Sirens blared in the distance, their wails slicing through the moment. Ethan's heart raced as he glanced around, his instincts screaming at him to protect his son. Then, before he could react, a figure surged forward from the throng, a woman wild-eyed and frantic. She stumbled, falling to her knees just a few feet from Ethan, clutching a small, crumpled letter in her hand. "Samuel!" she cried, and every head turned. The world seemed to pause. Samuel's face transformed, the wariness replaced by alarm. "Marie?" His voice was thick with disbelief, thick enough to cut the air. The little girl in his arms shifted, sensing the tension. "Where have you been?" she gasped, her face a mix of anger and relief. "I thought you were—" "Stop!" A voice boomed like a thunderclap that shattered the fragile moment. Ethan's mind reeled as a man, tall and imposing, appeared, eyes blazing like storms. "Get away from him!" The woman's hand shook as she held out the letter. "It's all here! You need to see this!" Samuel was on his feet, taking a step toward her. "Marie, what's going on?" Tension dripped thick in the air. People whispered, rumors sparking like wildfire. Why was this woman so intense? What did she mean by all this? Ethan felt it, his gut twisted, fear lacing through him. This was too close to his carefully built facade. Secrets began to surface, bubbling up like a pot about to overflow. "Listen," Samuel said, desperation etched on his face. "I've worked hard to keep this life away from you. It's dangerous." "Damn it, Sam! You think this is some game? You don't get to decide that anymore." Boom! She held the letter high, and Ethan caught a glimpse of the faded ink. Threats, accusations, a whole life wrapped in a fragile piece of paper. "You need to know who you really are." The crowd surged forward, faces masked with confusion, shock, and a sprinkle of disgust. People exchanged glances, some looking away, while others were glued to the unfolding drama. Ethan's throat was dry. Who was Samuel? His mind raced with questions that felt piercingly raw. What could a letter reveal about a man he barely knew? "It's just a letter," Samuel pleaded, panic in his eyes. But in that instant, he looked like a man caught in a storm, a prisoner to his own past. Then, with a sudden surge, Marie began to read, her voice trembling, each word slicing through the onlookers like a sharpened blade. "Your father, he..." But a deafening crash interrupted her. A truck barreled onto the park path, tires screeching, metal crumpling, and people screamed. There were shouts. Chaos erupted. Ethan turned instinctively, arms out, ready to shield his son. Everything shattered. His world, Samuel's secret. And as the dust settled and screams lingered, they all stood frozen, knowing something irreversible had changed. What had just happened? What truth lay at the heart of that letter? Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that everything he knew was about to unravel, one ugly secret at a time. In that moment, destiny veered left, and the shadows closed in, whispering coldly in every ear. The park's noise faded into silence. The future waited, sharp and unforgiving. Ethan's heart raced. His eyes flicked between Samuel and his son, the weight of choices flooding his mind. He was engulfed in a fog of fear and wonder. What was this strange bond growing between them? But before he could dive deeper into thought, the world lurched. A sudden crash shattered the air, a cacophony of clattering metal and panicked gasps. Ethan turned. A red car skidded on the pavement, tires screeching. The crowd exploded into chaos. Screams mingled with children's cries. He felt a wave of heat rush past him. Samuel jolted upright, his daughter's hand tightly clasped in his. The look on his face twisted from gentle concern to something alarmingly familiar. Urgency, instinct. Ethan barely registered it. His heart plummeted as he watched the car veer dangerously close. In a blur, Samuel pushed his daughter aside, just as an icy fear wrapped around Ethan's chest. Then it hit, a shattering sound like a gunshot. The car had collided with a tree, 5 feet from where they stood. Ethan staggered. A figure fell to the ground. A man, wearing a dark hoodie, clutching his side. Panic washed over the park, its vibrant life now a scene of horror. "Call 911!" someone yelled, the command slicing through the disarray. Ethan stared, unable to move. Rushing feet, shouts of shock. It was too much. But something grabbed his attention. Amid the chaos, Samuel tensed, his expression transformed, revealing a depth of pain. As the crowd circled the crash, he froze, fear etched in every line of his face. Ethan didn't know what he felt. Was it a flicker of guilt, or something even heavier? Then Samuel sprinted toward the wounded man, adrenaline surging. "Charlie!" he shouted, voice raw and frantic. Disbelief pierced Ethan. The man was Charlie? Fast replies formed in Ethan's mind. Charlie, Samuel's brother, the one he'd never mentioned. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by urgency. People gasped. Ethan's heart beat louder as he followed Samuel through the throng. Distant sirens wailed. growing closer. In that moment, everything changed. Samuel dropped to his knees beside Charlie, blood pooling around him as panic spread like wildfire. "What happened?" Samuel cried, shaking his brother lightly. "Don't you leave me, man!" Ethan felt steel grip his heart. This wasn't just a random accident. No, it was a dark thread pulling at the fabric of their encounter. Secrets unfurled on the ground, stark and unforgiving. The crowd gawked, phones raised, capturing every agonizing moment. Ethan was now part of something way beyond any comfort he sought. He could see the unraveling ties of his carefully built empire. But it was more than scandal. He realized with a pit in his stomach. This was a family legacy blooming into chaos, and he stood on the edge of it all. The paramedics finally arrived, slicing through the crowd with urgency. White light flashing in sirens, but Ethan's mind was racing, smashing thoughts together like waves on a shore. Samuel was fighting, his hands clasped around Charlie, a protective brother beneath layers of despair. Close by, a voice trembled. What if he doesn't make it? The words echoed in Ethan's mind. What if? What if Samuel's life and his precarious plan were taken in an instant? As the medics worked, the world fell still. Secrets and choices loomed heavy, waiting for release. Ethan felt the world shift beneath him. In the crack of the moment, he knew he was no longer just looking in. He had become a part of this narrative, and as Samuel's desperate cries joined the cacophony, an icy dread curled in his stomach. What would this twist of fate reveal? The future was anything but bright, and the shadows whispered secrets that screamed for the light. The park's noise faded into silence. The future waited, sharp and unforgiving. Then, a sudden gasp sliced through the air. A woman in a red jacket stumbled back, eyes wide. "Oh my God!" she screamed, pointing. The crowd turned, faces contorted in shock. Ethan's heart raced as he followed her gaze. A man emerged from the trees, wild-eyed and frantic. Scruffy hair, torn clothes. He was yelling something, words lost in the chaos, but the raw panic in his voice sent chills down Ethan's spine. Samuel's hold on his daughter tightened. Fear flickered across his face, and in that split second, Ethan understood. This was not just any man. This was a ghost from Samuel's past. "Get away from him!" the stranger shouted. "He doesn't deserve her. You don't know what he's done." Ethan felt his breath hitch. He glanced at Samuel, whose face had drained of color. He was a man caught in a nightmare, and the crowd buzzed with confusion and fear. "What are you talking about?" Ethan shot back, moving instinctively to protect Samuel and his daughter. His body tensed, readying for whatever was to come next. "He's a monster!" the stranger screamed. "He left! He abandoned us! She deserves better!" Samuel's eyes widened, the pain evident. No, I tried. I fought for us." His voice broke, desperation clawing at him. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Scandal wrapped tightly around their judgment. Whispers curled around like smoke. Secrets trading hands before Ethan's very eyes. But truth had just sidled into the conversation, wearing a menacing grin. "Son, stay close!" Ethan yelled to his boy, who was clutching his toy car. eyes wide. The atmosphere grew thick with tension. The yelling man was shaking, fists clenched, stepping closer. People exchanged glances, and smartphones flickered to life, caught in a moment when truth and chaos danced together. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, a fierce protectiveness rising. "His name is David," a voice broke through the turmoil. A woman stepped from the edge of the crowd. The air shifted as she took a deep breath. I'm his sister." Silence fell like a heavy curtain. David's face twisted, some recognition sparking behind his madness. "Liz, you shouldn't be here. You know what he is." "Stop," she snapped, locking eyes with Samuel. "You lied to me. You told me you were clean. You promised you were done. But here you are hiding again." Samuel's face fell, the hurt raw. "I was trying. I'm doing my best." "The best?" she scoffed, shaking her head. "You're a coward, Sam. You left us." Her voice cracked, defiance battling with sorrow. Ethan stood paralyzed, the world around him warped. How could Samuel be tangled in something so dark? Fear and confusion swirled in his chest. Somehow, the man who had pulled at Ethan's heartstrings was locked away in darker chains than he imagined. "Samuel, is this true?" Ethan's throat felt tight, that lump returning. Samuel hesitated, the truth swirling in his eyes. The weight of the world seemed to crash down in that moment, and the crowd leaned in, a sea of harsh judgment ready to consume them both. Thunder rolled in the distance, dark clouds curling ominously overhead. The sun dipped even lower, wrapping the park in shadows that felt thicker and colder. With one piercing truth, clear as day, the air around them whispered. That shared connection could shatter in an instant, igniting a storm neither could escape. And then, with one flick of her wrist, Liz revealed a crumpled paper, the kind that could change everything. She stepped forward, her voice resolute, shaking with emotion. "You want the truth, Ethan? Here it is." The future, once promising and bright, now hovered over a chasm. All eyes were on her, and Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him. The unraveling had begun. "Here it is," Liz breathed, shaking hands, gripping the crumpled paper as she stepped forward. The crowd leaned in, anticipation crackling in the air. Samuel's face turned pale, riddled with a mix of anger and regret. He opened his mouth to protest, but the words stuck in his throat. It was as if time paused. Each heartbeat, a silent countdown to chaos. With a snap, she unfolded the letter, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "You think you can just walk away, Samuel? You think you can pretend your past doesn't haunt you?" Liz paused, making eye contact with Ethan, each word a piercing arrow. "You owe it to us to face the truth." "Liz, please." Samuel's voice cracked, his body tense, muscles rigid with pain and fear. But she continued, steeling herself. "This isn't just about you anymore. It never was." The crowd buzzed with whispers, eyes darting between them. Confusion tumbling through the crowd like a storm brewing overhead. "Then what is it about?" Ethan shouted, desperation tinged with disbelief. The chill creeping up his spine was hard to shake. "What does this have to do with us?" Footsteps echoed, a sudden rush of tension suffocating the air. In the distance, flashing lights grew brighter as sirens pierced the chaotic backdrop, a warning that danger had not yet cleared. Samuel, Liz locked eyes with him. They found the letter in Dad's belongings after he died. The truth about the money, the threats, the people who want you to pay for what you did. A weight dropped in Ethan's gut. This was more than an angry sister confronting her brother. It was a trap. A wound suddenly exposed. A wound that could pull them all down. Just as Liz's statement sunk in, David lunged towards Samuel, fury distorting his features. "You're a liar, a coward." He shoved forward, fists clenched, desperation spilling over. "Stay back!" Samuel barked, instinct coiling him tight as he held his daughter close. "I didn't want this. I did it to protect you." "Protect me?" Liz scoffed, tears glistening in her eyes. "You think running and hiding was protecting me? You left me to deal with it all alone. You promised you'd come back for us, and now the past is here, dragging me back into hell." Beneath the commotion, Ethan felt the ground shift. His mind raced. Samuel wasn't just a man caught in a personal battle. He was the epicenter of something far darker, something that had tentacles reaching into lives they still didn't know about. Then, like a thunderclap, Marco's figure drifted into focus in Ethan's peripheral vision. It wasn't a benign presence anymore. Panic twisted in Ethan's chest as he realized the man wasn't just a random threat. "What are you doing here?" he shouted, unable to resist the urge to uncover the hidden truth. Marco smirked, eyes glistening cruelly. "This?" His voice dripped with condescension. "Oh, I'm just enjoying the show. Just because you got the money doesn't mean you can escape the consequences." Every heartbeat seemed to synchronize with Ethan's fear as Liz continued to speak, revealing the legacy of pain that clung tightly to Samuel, casting dark shadows over the family he thought he once knew. And then, the unexpected hit. A blinding flash erupted through the air. A loud bang. Guns. Ethan froze, heart hammering. This was no accident. The silence that followed was crushing. Time stopped. As everyone turned to the source, disbelief rippled through the crowd. There he was, a figure silhouetted against the dimming light, a gun raised. "This ends here. No more lies." Samuel's face twisted in horror, realization dawning just as the sound of gunfire echoed off the park's trees. In that moment, shock transformed into panic as people screamed, instantly scattering like leaves caught in a tempest. What would happen next? Would they survive the reality of their pasts colliding? As the park dissolved into chaos, Ethan's mind raced. Each second tasted like ash in his mouth. Desperation clung close, and the truth they all tried to hide was barreling toward them with an intensity that threatened to consume everything in its wake. The future they hoped for suddenly morphed into an inferno, igniting a new fear as secrets unraveled, leaving hearts raw and desperate for answers. The park's silence was charged, an unspoken tension hanging in the air. The gun had just gone off, and panic ignited like a match to dry grass. People were scrambling, shoving against one another in their haste to flee. Ethan's heart thundered in his chest. Everything spiraled. Chaos bled into the ordinary. In a rush of movement, he felt his instincts take over. He turned to shield his son, pulling him close. "Get down!" he shouted. But the world around him was already unraveling at the seams. Samuel's face twisted in horror. No, his voice was raw, a primal scream. "Samuel, move!" Ethan urged, adrenaline pushing him forward. And then came the explosion of sound. Not a gunshot, not a scuffle. Instead, the brilliant flash of light wrapped around the park, illuminating everything like a beacon of pure confusion. "Look!" someone screamed, pointing. The crowd shifted, a collective gasp echoing across the space. Ethan squinted against the brightness as it faded. In its wake stood a woman, seemingly untouched by the chaos erupting around her. A rare sight among panic. Long brown hair framed her face, eyes wide and determined. It was Jess, an old friend from his past, someone he thought he'd never see again. "Ethan!" she called, the sound piercing through the confusion. She pushed through the crowd, arms outstretched like she was fighting against time itself. "Jess?" Ethan's heart flickered with recognition, mixed with disbelief. "What are you doing here? I need you to listen to me. This is bigger than you know." Just as he opened his mouth to respond, David lunged again, fueled by rage, aiming right for Samuel. "You're a traitor!" Everything slowed. A knot of fear twisted in Ethan's gut, and without a second thought, he launched himself forward. He could feel the heat radiating from bodies rushing in all directions. Then, in an unexpected twist, Jess rushed in front of David, eyes fierce. "Stop! You don't know what you're doing!" "Get out of my way!" David growled. But Jess stood firm, unwavering. "I'm not letting you hurt anyone," she insisted, a steely resolve deep in her voice. Ethan was struck dumb. How did she know about Samuel? What did she mean by it being bigger than they knew? "Please, just leave," Jess pressed. And all at once, the weight of her urgency washed over him. Something wasn't right. Then, in a split second, the air shifted, fresh panic seeping back in. The crowd turned as the sound of sirens drew nearer, a stark reminder that their time was limited. "Time's up," Liz shouted, still holding the letter. "We need to finish this." Suddenly, the realization struck him like an ice-cold wave. The letter, it held truths that could set them on fire or save them. Its weight was a heavy burden, echoing with secrets that tied them all together. The chaos intensified. Samuel scrambled to his feet, eyes blazing, anger mingling with hurt, a cornered animal ready to fight. "You have no idea what I went through." "Yeah?" David spat. "Tell that to our family." Ethan grabbed Samuel's arm, shaking him lightly. "Samuel, what's going on? You've got to tell me." And in that moment, Jess drew closer, eyes darting nervously. "You have to trust me. Samuel's not what you think." The earth seemed to tilt. The past and present collided in an unstoppable force that sent his mind spinning. "Not what I think?" Ethan echoed, disbelief coating his words. "What does that even mean?" "Samuel was set up," she pressed, urgency rising in her voice. "He didn't betray anyone. He was trying to protect those he loved." Before he could digest her words, Liz stepped forward, her voice trembling but powerful. "You want the truth? That letter proves it. Samuel is the key to everything." to bringing down those who have hunted our family. If he doesn't step forward now, we're all done for." His heart pounded louder, each beat drawing closer to despair. Suddenly, whispers broke through the cacophony, gasps turning into confusion. What did she mean? Out of nowhere, another figure appeared, pushing through the crowd. Ian, the enigmatic man Ethan thought had vanished from existence. He grinned darkly, eyes gleaming. "Surprise, Ethan. You thought you had it all figured out?" Ian laughed, an unsettling warmth in his tone that sent shivers down Ethan's spine. "Your entire life has been a ruse, and you never even knew it." Ethan's stomach dropped. What? Was all he could manage? Disbelief melding into horror. Everything led to this moment. Ethan, Samuel, the money, it's all connected. And now you have a choice. You play ball, or we all fall together. The words pierced through the chaos, leaving them hanging in the air like a death sentence. And as the reality of his world turned upside down, Ethan stood frozen, unable to grasp the weight of Ian's revelation. The world he thought he knew shattered in an instant. As sirens filled his ears, he felt desperation clawing at him. A question swirling in his mind. Just how deep did this conspiracy run? And with darkness creeping closer, would he sacrifice everything to save those he cared about, or condemn them to face the past he wanted to escape? The future hung precariously, ready to tip into chaos. Ethan's heart was in his throat. The tension was thick, a live wire igniting chaos around them. David was wild-eyed, anger spilling over. Samuel stood frozen, pain etched deep within him, holding on to the fragile remnants of his world. "Enough!" Ethan shouted, stepping forward. "This has to end here." With each breath, the crowd's energy shifted, whispers crackling like dry leaves in the wind. Samuel wouldn't let his past define him. He had to step forward. "Ethan, if you're with me, you need to believe me." "Believe you? After everything?" Ethan shot back, emotions spiraling. "Trust him," Jess pleaded, moving closer. "You don't understand the bigger picture. This isn't just about you, it's about everyone." The sirens still wailed in the distance, but time felt suspended, a weight pressing down on them. He could feel it, a storm brewing, lives hanging in the balance. David lunged again, desperation morphing into rage. "You think you can hide forever, Samuel? You owe us. You owe our family." Tension snapped as Samuel's voice rose. "I never wanted this. I thought I was protecting you." The truth hung suspended in the air, cracking like glass. Liz stepped closer, her hands trembling as she clutched the letter. "This letter, it has everything. If we expose it, we can stop them." The ominous shadow of Ian loomed, adding weight to every word. "You really think you stand a chance against the machine that runs this city? Money won't save you." But something shifted within Ethan. Fear was morphing into resolve. No one is going down without a fight. If there's a way to bring your past into the light, We'll do it together. Samuel nodded, determinación rekindling in his weary eyes. He was ready to reclaim control of his life. No more hiding. I won't let them take my daughter or my family again. Then let's expose them all, Ethan said, heart racing. The bond was forming, a fragile alliance woven between them through pain and shared secrets. Just then, another crash pierced the air. Everyone turned. Flashing lights illuminated the park as police finally descended, sirens slicing through the tension. "Step away from them!" an officer shouted, guns drawn. In that instant, the atmosphere shifted again. The chaos around them faded, hearts racing. It was time. Samuel took a deep breath, the weight of decisions heavy. "I'll tell them the truth." "No!" David roared, but it was too late. Samuel stepped forward, voice steady as steel. "This ends now. I'll finally make it right." With the crowd holding its breath, Samuel looked toward Ethan, a glimmer of gratitude in his eyes. As he began to speak, everything felt raw. The past was erupting forward, shadows stretching long into the distance. Truth hung heavy in the air, ready to ignite. But just as it appeared the web was unraveling, cries erupted from the crowd. Someone collapsed. Another siren wailed closer. Could they pull through this? Could the truth reshuffle destiny's deck? Ethan's heart thundered as he looked between Samuel and Liz, watching them step into the light, arms around each other. "This is just the beginning," Ethan whispered, knowing whatever lay ahead would change everything. "You feel it, right? This need to know what happens next? You have to subscribe now to catch every twist of this story. Smash that like button and let's feed that algorithm with your support. Flood the comments with your thoughts. What do you think will happen to Samuel and his family? And don't even think about waiting. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this nail-biting ending. The mystery runs deeper, and you don't want to miss a second of it.